What is up, everybody? Welcome to the official WWE Day One post show here on the Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast, a show that is for the fans, by the fans. I am your phenomenal host, Mr. Podcasting, Chris Belcher. As you can see, to my right is the Young Buck. Ladies and gentlemen, Andy York is with me tonight, and we have just, Andy, I don't know what we just watched. Oh my gosh. I was going to try to wait a little bit and let everybody kind of come in before we talk about the main event. But I feel like I have to get these thoughts out right now.
Yeah. It was because we talked about this before, the pay-per-view even started, and we were both like, well, I even said Brock may win because that's the thing of if somebody gets added to a match last second, they normally win. But they're still probably going to try to tell this Roman Brock story, so he's probably not going to win, and Big E probably is going to retain all that. And boy, it was a big shock. It was definitely a big shock.
It was insane, but it was a fun match. We're going to get to that. If you are listening to us not live, so that would be after Saturday night, we are live right now on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, taking your comments, your questions, all those things. If you are listening live, welcome to the show. Again, whichever platform you're listening on, thank you for doing that. Make sure you send in your comments. We'll do our best to get to all of them. If you are new to the Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast, I want to go ahead and get this out of the way as well. We drop shows every Monday and Wednesday, brand new content, except for this coming Monday, because this show will replace Monday's show. So we normally, after pay-per-views, do a recap. They normally happen on Sunday nights, so that would be the Monday show. But we're on a Saturday night, so it's a Sunday show. Sorry. Wednesday will be our next new show. All right. So wherever you find your podcast, and of course, a shout out to bodyslam.net, their YouTube channel, for hosting us. They do a fantastic job, and we appreciate their partnership, as well as Tom and the crew over at SportsWire Radio. Thank you so much for all you do for us as well. We would not be where we are without our partners, and of course, without our listeners. So thank you so much. Follow us on social media if you're not doing that already at PBW Podcast. All that is now out of the way. Andy, let's get to it, man. Brock Lesnar gets added to the main event. Was originally a fatal 4-way, became a fatal 5-way because the news comes out that Roman Reigns has COVID. He tested positive hours before the event. First of all, thoughts and prayers out to Roman Reigns, who has battled leukemia, been very public about that for a long time. So for him to get COVID, don't know if he's had it previously. This is really, man, the first wrestler that WWE has actually come out, to my knowledge, and said that they've been positive for COVID.
Yeah, I think they may have done it with Seth last week too, but I'm not entirely sure.
Right. I know Seth did it. I just don't know.
Seth did it. I just don't know if WWE themselves actually did it. So, it's definitely a big deal, especially for this kind of a pay-per-view, this big pay-per-view that they've been planning for a while. But, it's one of those of when wrestling circumstances, when outside circumstances in the wrestling world kind of interfere. Normally we get a lot of magic that takes place, a lot of good things that take place, or at least interesting things that take place, and this is definitely no different than that. But like you said, we're thinking about Roman, hoping everything is okay, he's doing fine, and hopefully he can come back soon, because we need to figure some things out really quickly.
We got to get some stuff figured out. Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, you got to think Brock Lesnar gets added to this match, and spoiler alert, Brock Lesnar wins the WWE Championship against Big E, Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, and Bobby Lashley. That's the other one. Thank you. Brock Lesnar wins the championship. So you have to think, if Roman's going to be, I would think if Roman's going to be out for a couple weeks, you would want to keep Brock on SmackDown to keep that, just to at least keep the star power there. But now he's going to go over to Raw. Do you swap Roman to Raw? I mean, what does all that look like?
Well, he's still technically a free agent.
Brock, yes.
Yeah, so I think he's going to show up on both shows. I think he's going to go back and forth between Raw and SmackDown, because he's definitely still got some unfinished business with Roman that has to be taken care of somewhere, somehow. But
and now he's got unfinished business with 4 other guys.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that's the process that we're going to start seeing. Plus, we still got this whole Paul Heyman thing that we're fleshing out, trying to figure out, move on, or figure out the end of this story with them as well. So I think, honestly, he's going to bounce back and forth between both shows. And I honestly don't know what to expect from this point on. This is normally around this time they like to change plans, or they like to swerve us in a lot of ways, but normally it's the Rumble. And this, you know, definitely came early, and I have no idea what to expect now.
Well, and what a way, again, circumstances, we don't wish that on anybody, talking about Roman and his COVID stuff, but in a way, man, they were trying to establish this day one pay-per-view, and what a way to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm not trying to like dive too far into a rabbit hole here, but honestly, it makes me think, like, was there a chance, since they're trying to establish this, you want a big shock? The rest of the pay-per-view wasn't shocking.
Right.
Did they have a plan to have Roman lose to Brock?
Possibly. I really do. I think that might have been the plan, or at least conversation. It was definitely a conversation that they had to have had. I don't know. Honestly, to me, it doesn't make sense for Brock to beat Roman just yet, or at all, to be honest, because I've been very vocal about this, about Brock, you know, keeping that title for a long time, or not Brock, but Roman keeping the title for a long time.
Yeah.
Not losing it and then winning it back or whatever. But you know, honestly, it would not have surprised me to find that out. If any shock was going to come, I thought it was going to come from the Fatal 4-Way. But not from that match. But honestly, it could have been that way.
Man, so the match itself, we were talking about it. It was fast paced the whole time.
Short.
There was no rest. They didn't stop.
No, they did not.
Only went about not even 15 minutes, I would say.
Probably not.
Somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 15.
I don't think Seth or Kevin broke a sweat.
I
really don't. Brock was sweating, but Brock sweats when he walks up to the ring. But like that was the other thing. Like Brock took like 90% of everybody's offense. Like Brock got beat up for most of this match.
He did,
and then just 4 F5s to 3 different people.
Yeah, because he picked
up the win.
You noticed.
Yep.
You noticed he didn't get Bobby.
Nope.
He did not get Bobby, guys. So this guy called it at the end, because we've talked about this podcast for a long time.
Yep.
Bobby Brock.
Yep.
Bobby Brock. That's what we want to see. And you called it as soon as the pay-per-view was over. You said that's got to be the main event.
Because the way they shot the end of
stare down,
Brock, Bobby outside with MVP behind him, and the stare down between Brock and Bobby, and just all of it is setting up. It has to set up to
Brock
that.
Getting F5 Bobby.
No, Brock didn't touch Bobby.
And technically, Brock did not break the Hurt Lock either.
No, Big E got involved and broke it up. So Bobby beat up Brock. Brock didn't touch Bobby.
Yep.
And Brock won the WWE Championship. And honestly, if we do not get that match I don't even want it to Rumble. This has to be a WrestleMania. I think Big E should get his one-on-one rematch with Brock at the Rumble.
Yep.
And then don't let Brock defend the title until Mania.
I agree.
You get Bobby versus Brock at WrestleMania, and I think it tells itself.
I think Bobby probably wins. You think he has to win the Elimination Chamber to get it?
I don't think he's winning the Rumble. I mean, he could.
The more that we say it, though, I'm like, you know what? Who else? You know what I mean?
I mean, maybe Seth. Maybe with Seth, and Seth goes after Roman instead of Brock, because he's already done that.
Yep.
But honestly, like, if it's not somebody outside of the current main roster that we have now, Bobby's got to be the hands-on favorite.
I agree. I totally agree. Especially after the year that he had last year.
Yeah.
And, in 2021, Bobby Lashley, arguably next to Roman Reigns, had the best, well, throw Seth Rollins in there, but had the best 2021. And you got to reward him with another big-time WrestleMania match, I think.
Absolutely.
Because you look, he wrestled Drew, incredible series of matches throughout the spring of 2021. He wrestled Goldberg for a while, and regardless of your feelings of Goldberg, that's a big time spot.
Oh, absolutely.
So
and for him to get the rub of, I know he quote unquote cheated, but to even pin Goldberg or beat Goldberg or however it was, it's still a big deal. And the way that Goldberg put him down, it wasn't just like a typical Goldberg match, but he had to nearly kill him basically to win.
Sure.
So Bobby still looks very strong, and just if Bobby beats Brock, I think it elevates Bobby even more to higher status.
Well, and I really don't think that Bobby, we said he might win the Elimination Chamber to get the shot or what have you. I don't even think Bobby needs to win the Rumble to get the shot. I think this is one of those Goldberg situations where all you got to do is walk in and say, I'm next.
Yep.
You know,
People will be
Yep.
absolutely.
And they'll go wild.
Just like Cena coming back after Money in the Bank to say, you have beat everybody, but you haven't beat me or whatever.
Right.
That's all he needed. Bobby can walk in and say, I beat you up at day one. You had to have help to get away from it.
Yep.
Let's do this again.
I agree. So I think that's going to be a big time WrestleMania match. We're predicting it already. Bobby, or at least we're very hopeful. Bobby Brock at WrestleMania. So you said Brock and Biggie at the Rumble. I 100% agree with that. Maybe Brock doesn't defend the title until Mania. Makes a lot of sense in the world. What you could do with Biggie. I mean, I think you could throw Big E into that maybe trade at Mania.
Yeah, but to me, Bobby Brock, the first time Bobby and Brock have their match, it has to be one.
I agree with that. So, let's get into that. You mentioned The Rock a little bit ago. This opens the door very, very wide for a Roman Reigns Rock match for WrestleMania. It was ever going to happen. Again, COVID situation and all of that. It's a perfect storm if you can make it happen.
And I know a lot of people are talking about Hollywood next year. Who says this is a one-on-one?
Exactly.
10 years ago, this year was Cena Rock one.
Yep.
So, in fact, that's 10 years old. Ridiculous.
That's insane.
But I honestly we get the match here. I think we get the match at the Hollywood. Maybe not title. Rock wins that. Or maybe Roman cheats to win. However, I think we get that match again. Probably 2 years. I think we get Mania this year. And Mania next year. And I think next year is when Rock will completely retire. Maybe even dip back into the Hall of Fame. All of that. I think is absolutely
all the things. So maybe Rock comes back to the Rumble this year. Who knows? But I choose this before think show. And I've preached this for a long time. I know you agree with me. This is now a setup. Cannot rock the Rock for Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins.
Absolutely.
This is because that match hasn't happened, and that match is WrestleMania worthy. I mean, that match can headline WrestleMania because of the history of those two guys. Those two guys can go, man. Like that is. This opens the door wide.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think whatever happens, I think it's going to be crazy.
I totally. You are just now joining us. You've just now stumbled upon us. Whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, thank you so much for checking us out. This is the Five on Wrestling Podcast. The show that is for the fans, by the fans. My name is Chris Belcher, alongside Mr. Andy. We're talking all about WWE Day One, the shocker that won. Well. Shocker, but not really shocker, as Seth Rollins called it. Brock Lesnar this all, and come in and win the WWE Championship in an incredible match. We'll get more into that for sure as this whole story unfolds on this Wednesday's podcast. So make sure that you check us out wherever you find your podcast, or on Sportswater Radio, or on BodySlam.net YouTube channel. Make sure you check us out on one of those platforms. Hit that subscribe button. I know that all the other shows on those networks. We appreciate your love and support as well. Post your comments on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We're going to try to get to all of those. Weigh in on what you think happened at WWE Day 1 tonight. So that's the main event, man. One of the other big matches we obviously have to talk about the night before that, Becky Lynch and Liv Morgan. I know you've been very vocal on the show about Liv Morgan and how this thing should have a chance, whatever. Kind of a weird, wonky ending a little bit there, but Becky pulling out the win.
Yeah. The finish aside, the match was really good.
It was.
I mean, the match was really good. Liv Morgan really showed
that sunset flip springboard powerbomb. Good.
Ridiculous. She pulled out a lot of moves that she hasn't done before, and it was really cool to see that. I think, honestly, this match, while she didn't win, this match proved that she can kind of hang with the top people.
Sure.
And I think that it proved that she could. You could run this back at Mania and have her win, have her have the big feel-good moment, and I don't think people would be upset with it. Because I feel like she has kind of built her way up to this point.
Sure, she is.
And I think it's more than deserving of her to win, or at least win the Rumble and get to that spot. Maybe she doesn't win, but winning the Rumble elevates her even more, and we can kind of tell that story as you go along. But this match was absolutely fantastic. Props to Becky, props to Liv Morgan. It was so good. The finish was very. You couldn't really tell what happened. I don't know if she got poked in the eye or not because nobody ever said anything except her pointing at her eye.
She was selling.
But other than that, the match itself was really, really good.
Yeah, it was good. I've just been very vocal about. I'm not sold on Liv Morgan. Obviously, her wrestling skills are good. She showed it in the ring tonight. I go back to Becky Lynch has not been beaten since before WrestleMania 35. She has not been pinned. She has not submitted since in over 2 years.
Right.
I just don't think Liv is the person to do that.
But if she is, imagine how much that elevates her. Being the one. I think that's part of it is the story is, yeah, Becky hasn't lost a singles match. Becky hasn't been pinned since 2019. So the person that does it automatically gets that massive push, that massive rub. And to benefit somebody like a Liv Morgan, because I mean, a Charlotte doesn't need that.
No.
Or Sasha doesn't need that.
Nope.
Bayley doesn't need that.
Nope.
Asuka doesn't need that.
Nope.
And so you could build a Liv Morgan up to that point.
Well, I think there's an argument to be made for Asuka. It's funny you bring her up because I feel like she would need that when she comes back to get herself back on the Asuka of old.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So she could benefit from it. I agree. Liv Morgan would benefit the most from it. My concern is, will the weight of that sink into a casual fan? And push Liv Morgan that much further. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be like a Daniel Bryan moment.
Right. That's what I'm thinking.
Any point, but I still think it could be. I mean, nobody thought that about Becky either a couple years ago, and look how she handled it and look how she took off with it. So I think this could be Liv Morgan's jumping off point to get to that spot to make people, the casual fan, realize, oh, this is a really interesting dynamic. This is a really interesting story, and we can get behind her because I'm just like her.
Sure.
Like I'm not the best. I'm not the biggest. I'm not the fastest. I'm not the strongest. But I can crawl and scratch and fight my way to the top. And she can kind of tell the same story that you kind of did with Daniel Bryan. Not necessarily to the same level, but I think you could tell that same story and it would still get the same result from the fans.
I agree. I can see that for sure. Another match that we were all really, really high on is Edge and The Miz. Just an incredible match. Really kind of a slower pace match.
Yeah.
Both of these guys wrestle a slower pace as it is, though.
Mm-hmm.
You had Edge coming out with the Brood entrance, which was fantastic. You had Beth Phoenix causing the distraction to help Edge win.
Yeah.
Obviously, setting up a mixed tag match down the road, but all in all, really good performance by all four people in that match.
Yeah, the match was slow, not as slow as the referees count in the women's.
Oh my gosh!
But, it was definitely not what I was expecting.
Right.
It took a long time. It felt like to get to a lot of momentum in the match. If that's kind of the right phrasing to say.
Yep.
But it was still a really solid match. I don't think it's obviously Edge's best match since he returned because the WrestleMania match and all the matches with Seth and everything that he's done kind of. But, it was a great way to kind of advance the story. We both thought Miz was going to pick up the win after a Maurice distraction. Then Beth comes out afterwards, but Beth coming out to win kind of gives the heels an out in a way to kind of go forward and have this mixed tag match probably at Mania, hopefully at the Rumble, but probably at Mania.
Hope not at Mania.
But
I feel like, I don't know. I feel like you can move this story along.
Yeah.
I don't know how much more meat is on the bone as far as dragging it out all the way to Mania.
But do you keep both of them out of the Rumble?
Sure.
They're not in the Rumble this year?
No, why not? I don't think so.
I think Edge needs to be.
You could pull that off and put them both in it. And we've seen that happen.
Yeah, that's true.
It doesn't, not everybody that's on the card ends up in the Rumble, but sometimes they do.
That's true, because Roman had a WWE Universal Championship match and then came out number 30 a couple years ago, and people loved it.
Yeah. loved it, lost it, whatever. So yeah, I think you could still put them both in the
I think you
Rumble.
could.
I think you could drag this out. This could be a marquee match for Elimination Chamber or Fast Lane or whatever. You could do that.
Yeah.
But you got to get it out of the way because you got to build a story for both of these guys separately for WrestleMania if you're doing that.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? All right. Street Profits and RK Bro, an incredible tag match for the Raw Tag Team Championship. RK Bro picking up the win with an incredible RKO from the sky. You know, we kind of expected Montez Ford to be trying to hit a frog splash and Randy catching him.
Yeah.
But it was the old Diamond Dallas Page pop up, you know, RKO, Diamond Cutter, whatever. It was really cool.
It was really cool. I kind of mentioned this when we were watching it. Randy Orton matches are not known for bell to bell. It's known for the finish of the match.
It's if you start watching a Randy Orton match, especially a Randy Orton tag match, at the hot tag, you haven't missed anything before that.
No.
You know, that doesn't take anything away from all four guys that were in the match. But if you start at the hot tag, you're good.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is, though, in this match, it seemed like Montez Ford, the Street Profits in general, but Montez Ford was wrestling more of like a heel style.
Yeah, it was weird.
To the point where at the end of the match, because you had RK Bro and you had the Migos out there, and then you had the Street Profits out there, and they were shaking their hands, I was waiting for a heel turn.
Yeah.
Like I was waiting for Montez and Angelo to attack them, and that didn't happen. So I don't know if that was by design or if it just came across weird or however it was, but it was definitely a different side of the Street Profits, a side that I could possibly get behind because it was it's a different dynamic between the two of them. But yeah, the match itself was basically what I was expecting it to be, which was really good because all four guys are really, really good in the ring.
And we did not get the turn of Randy on Riddle or Riddle on Randy. We both assume that's coming at some point soon, but they got to drop the titles first, I would think.
I think they drop it at the Rumble, and then one of them eliminates the other one in the Rumble. And then when they go for the rematch at Elimination Chamber of Fastlane, they lose, and then one of them turns.
But this has to be a WrestleMania match.
Yeah, absolutely.
These guys have been at each other's throats, and then partners, and then at each other's throats, and then partners. So the rubber's got to meet the road at some point. It has to be to WrestleMania. It's been a long time. But really good match. I really enjoyed it. Of course, then you got Drew McIntyre and Madcap Moss, which took a lot longer than it should have, man.
That match should have ended very quickly, and it felt like it went forever.
It really did. I mean, I know that Moss is a decent wrestler, you know what I mean? But I mean, I guess it's more of giving Drew time. I don't know. We saw a backstage segment where Corbin attacked Drew, and apparently this story is going to continue.
Yeah, probably to the Rumble, maybe just before the Rumble, but hopefully it does not progress from there because I think Drew could be a viable opponent for Roman at WrestleMania.
I agree. I totally agree.
Or Brock. You could run that back at WrestleMania, Roman or Drew versus Brock. If you're not going to do Bobby, which I don't know why you wouldn't do Bobby, but
I don't either.
I think you could tell that story again. I think you could move him up to fight Roman and it feel like a big time match. But I don't know what they're going to do with Drew at WrestleMania this year. If he's not in the main event, if he's not fighting for a championship, maybe he goes after Shinsuke. Maybe he goes after Sami Zayn whenever that match is going to happen. I don't know. I honestly don't know who he goes.
I just hope they don't drag this out where it's Drew versus Corbin.
That's what I'm afraid might happen.
Well, because you look at Drew had the big spotlight throughout 2020, and he wrestled this big time program. Excuse me. Big time program with Bobby Lashley throughout the first part of 2021. And then we get to SummerSlam and he has this 2-minute match with Jinder Mahal, you know? And so I'm like you, I'm afraid of what's going to happen come WrestleMania. If he doesn't, I don't think he'll win the Rumble, but you know, I don't know.
Maybe Drew and Kevin Owens.
Yeah.
Maybe Drew versus a heel Finn Balor. Something like that. I have no idea. I have no idea what they have planned for him.
I have no idea. Regardless, I know what I do have an idea about, and that is all of you who are listening or watching. If you have not subscribed to the BodySlam.net YouTube channel, or you are not following along wherever you find your podcast, please make sure you do that. We drop brand new episodes every Monday and Wednesday, wherever you find your podcast, Sports Wire Radio, and on BodySlam.net's YouTube channel. So make sure you're following along with us at PBW Podcast. This is the Bite Bomb Wrestling Podcast, the official WWE Day 1 post show. He is Andy York. My name is Chris Belcher. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We still got a couple more matches to go, and then we'll wrap up with some final thoughts. The first match of the night, and probably the best match of the night.
Maybe, yeah. It was obviously it was good. It was really good.
As we called it, would probably be the best match of the night, at least. The Usos and the New Day tearing down the house one more time. The Usos getting the win with a 3D from out of nowhere.
Very weird.
That was crazy. But listen, y'all, these guys can't have a bad match. I swear. They just can't. And it was like this match. I compared it to, I was thinking about comparing it with the RK Bro and Street Profits matches. Like that match started out super slow, then you got the hot tag. I felt like with the New Day and the Usos, you got the hot tag with 10 minutes in, and then the other 15 was just pedal to the metal.
Yeah, and that's normally how they work. Like that's normally they take it slow for like 5 minutes, and then all of a sudden it just kicks into a different gear, and they're going off. This match is just. This matchup is one of those I could watch forever and never get bored of, and it's amazing. It's like honestly, it's like the Young Bucks and the Lucha Bros. Like it's they can't have a bad match. They cannot have a bad match together. So kudos to them for making it different each and every time and making it fun each and every time. And false finishes in these matches are always ridiculous.
It's insane,
but you know it was definitely a amazing match, a hard match to follow, and it was the first match of the night.
Right, and if you are. If you've never seen the Usos and the New Day wrestle other than tonight, go back, do yourself a favor. SummerSlam, was it 16 or 17? They had a kickoff match.
Yep.
And oh my gosh.
You could also go back and watch their Hell in a Cell match.
That one too.
That match is amazing.
So good. And it was from the same year too. So it's either 2016 or 2017.
And you can go watch their rap battle they had against each other.
That was fantastic.
Fantastic and entertaining.
Oh my gosh.
Amazing.
So good. So New Day and Usos, make sure you're familiar with that because that is some good tag team wrestling. WWE can have good tag team wrestling, folks. I promise. I said it last week on the show, last Wednesday, that I thought that these two matches would show that WWE can have good tag team wrestling, and they did.
Yep.
They showed it.
They did.
Let's cover the pre-show match. Normally we don't do this, but I want to cover the pre-show match because we had Sheamus and Ridge Holland against Ricochet and Cesaro. And Ridge Holland got his nose broke. Oh my gosh. So if you missed it, Ricochet was going for a moonsault and he kicked Ridge Holland in the face. Broke his nose. It was pretty bad.
Yeah, I saw the picture afterwards, and it was his nose is definitely broken. His eye is like swollen shut almost, and it was just it's one of those that like you never want to see it happen, but when it happens, it's like disgusting and beautiful at the same time.
Right.
And so it was a nasty move, a nasty landing. Obviously, not done on purpose and just a freak thing or a miscalculation of things and just the thing that happens.
Right.
But it was definitely brutal to watch.
It was rough. It was rough for sure. All right, man. Any final thoughts on day one that that we didn't hit or anything? I know I'm still reeling about this whole Brock Lesnar thing. Like my mind is going 1,000 different directions as to what they could do.
Yeah. It's one of the first few times, not one of the first few times, but it's the first time in a while where I don't know what to expect now for WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And that makes it fun. Like that makes it so like sometimes you know where it's going because it needs to go that way to tell the story.
Right.
And it should go that way to tell the story. This year I don't know who's going to win the Rumble. I don't know necessarily who is going to be WWE champion or Universal champion going into the show and who they're fighting, who they're facing. There's a lot of people on the card. There's a lot of people that don't have spots on the card yet that need spots. So there are going to be a lot of interesting matchups there. And, there are always a couple of surprises and returns. Maybe Rock, maybe Ronda, maybe Beth Phoenix faces Becky Lynch at WrestleMania for the Women's Championship because that's a match apparently I want to see now. Like maybe Kevin Owens versus Brock Lesnar one-on-one is something we talked about.
Which we've never seen.
So I think that's something that you could do as well. So there's so many options. There's so many ways to go.
Yep.
And it's so much fun to kind of sit back and look at it and not know where it's going to go from here.
Well, it's certainly a fun year for it to be that way because of what happened earlier, which we'll get to it at a later point.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later on down the road, but it's a fun year for it to happen that way. Let's just put it that way.
Yep.
But man, yeah, I literally, as soon as the show went off, like our wives were sitting there watching with it. Kudos to our wives for watching the whole show with us.
Kudos to my wife, by the way. When Randy Orton hit the hot tag, she went, "Is that a hot tag?" And I was like,
"That's
it.
incredible.
Okay.
That's
She's
so good.
She's a fan.
That's so good." But so they were sitting there with us, and as soon as the match ended, the words that came out of my mouth were WWE just got flipped on its head.
It did.
Legit flipped on its head. And that's incredible. Like you just described it. Now who's going to win the Rumble? Mm-hmm. Now who's Brock facing? Because we know, like, I am 98% sure that Brock's going to carry that title to WrestleMania.
Absolutely.
I don't think he loses it between now and
I don't
then.
think he's going to drop it tomorrow. Or I'm used to pay-per-views on Sunday. I don't think he's going to drop it Monday night. I don't think he's going to drop it at the Rumble. Honestly, I don't know if he's even going to drop it at Mania this year. Like there's so many things that could happen from here to now that we have no idea what to expect.
Okay, so let's book this for a minute. I know we're really going down a rabbit hole, but that's okay. Let's say that happens. Let's say Brock. Let's say he doesn't lose the title. Maybe let's just say, for instance, he does lose it at Mania. Mm-hmm. Do you now push the Brock Roman rematch to SummerSlam?
Possibly.
Or Money in the Bank?
Probably SummerSlam. Okay. I put Brock in the Money in the Bank match because that was fun the first time and make it fun. I think it would be fun again.
And have him win it and just say, I'm cashing in at SummerSlam
or
again.
Not even have him win it. Just maybe he's in it. Maybe Roman and the Usos come out and beat him up during the match where he can't win it.
Okay.
That's an excuse why he didn't win it. Makes him still look strong. Gives him a viable contention to fight Roman at SummerSlam this year. At SummerSlam. So I think that could happen. As well. I don't think that's a match. Brock Roman isn't a match that takes place at Money in the Bank. I think it's more geared towards a Mania, Rumble, or SummerSlam. And I think that's more than likely where that's heading.
I don't know because Money in the Bank is going to be in a stadium this year. They're going to be in Las Vegas. So it's like now it's a big five. So
that could be where you do Roman versus Seth, though. Is that Money in the Bank?
Oh gosh, I hope not.
Because that's a rematch. That's a rematch of their WWE Championship match a few years ago.
At Money in the Bank,
when all three members of the Shield held the title, you could kind of bring it full circle there.
I guess it's just so interesting because there's literally this is the first time in a long time. You said it. Where you could go a zillion different directions and they all actually make sense.
Yep.
And they're all actually really, really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, you got to think 35. We all knew that Seth was more than likely going to win. Kofi was going to win. Becky was going to win.
Yep.
Those are the three big things that we knew was going to happen. 36, we knew Drew was going to win. We knew The Fiend was going to beat Cena more than likely.
Yep. Taker was going to beat AJ.
Taker was going to beat AJ. Strowman was going to beat Goldberg.
Yep.
Like we knew, which I forgot that match has happened until now.
Glad you reminded me. Not
WrestleMania 37. We knew Roman was going to win the WWE the Universal Championship more than likely.
Bianca was going to win.
Bianca was going to win. The only one that really shocked us last year was Bobby beating Drew and Randy beating The Fiend. Like those are the only two that kind of shocked us. That Bobby beating Drew did not end out turning bad.
Right.
Randy beating The Fiend turned out to be a really stupid decision. And so, this is one of those years that, like, I don't know any match that's going to take place at WrestleMania yet. Like, maybe it could be Roman versus The Rock. Maybe it could be Brock versus Bobby. Maybe it's Roman versus Brock to unify the titles. Like, there's no guarantee of what we're going to get just yet for WrestleMania. And I think after the Rumble, we're going to know a whole lot more. But even then, I don't know if we're going to know exactly what we're doing yet.
It is, man, we are officially on the road to WrestleMania, literally and figuratively, but we are on the road to WrestleMania, and it could not be a curvier, windier, unpredictable, daggum roller coaster, almost like being a Titans fan, that I've ever been on. But man, this is a lot of fun. Like, I'm so glad that, again, not glad that Roman Reigns has COVID. Let's get that out there. But I am so glad this pay-per-view ended the way that it did.
Yeah.
I really am.
The only issue I had I don't even necessarily have an issue with Brock winning. The only issue I have is that to me, it made it feel like Big E's title run. I don't think we got enough out of it. I feel like it was very short-lived.
Sure.
Only one memorable defense against Drew at Crown Jewel.
Yep.
And then nothing else kind of happened during his run. So it seemed like his run was just starting to get going before he lost the title. And I hate the fact that he was the one that got pinned. I think you could have pinned Kevin Owens or Seth Rollins, and it been completely fine. And I think it would have actually probably made Big E look even better, because maybe Brock hits an F5 to Big E through a table or something, and then Brock is able to pin Kevin Owens off of F5 or something.
Well, because now Big E really doesn't have a leg to stand on as far as a rematch at Rumble or whatever.
Plus, Brock defeated Kofi for the WWE Championship. Brock has now defeated Big E for the WWE Championship. So it seems like Brock just hates the New Day at this point.
Well, maybe that is true. Let's hope King Woods doesn't make a trip over to Raw, because he's going to get thrown all over.
Well, he's a free agent, so he can just show up at SmackDown and throw
him
around.
That's true. Yep, that's very true. All right, man. Let's wrap this thing up, man. That's WWE Day 1. What a night it was. I'm so glad. I really am. Like, this is it. Unpredictable WWE is the best WWE
at times. For sure.
For sure. For those of you who are checking us out for the first time tonight, thank you so much for doing that. We drop shows every Monday and Wednesday, and we don't only talk about WWE. We do talk about AEW. We will be talking about AEW this Wednesday, and we are going to address some of the controversy that took place this weekend coming up on Wednesday, with the whole Big Swole and Tony Khan and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We're going to tread lightly when we talk about that on Wednesday, but there are a couple things that I do want to bring up that I find very interesting on both sides. So we will be bringing that up. We're going to talk about the insane street fight on Rampage between the 4 girls. We're going to preview AEW's first Dynamite on TBS, kicking off with Hangman Adam Page against Bryan Danielson for the AEW Championship. So we're going to talk all about that coming up this Wednesday, as well as some more of the aftermath of WWE Day 1. So keep it right here, BodySlam.net YouTube channel, SportsWire Radio, and wherever you find your podcast. Make sure you follow us at PBW Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Make sure you throw Andy a follow. He's at Andy_PBWP. I am at Chris Belcher 24. Make sure you head on over to ProWrestlingTees.com/PBW Podcast and buy yourself a fancy shirt. Promo code New Year for 20% off. That started today, and I think it runs through Monday or Tuesday. Not 100% sure. Get on that. Buy yourself a t-shirt. Support the show. We would appreciate it. All right. I've rambled enough. This is Andy York. My name is Chris Belcher. Thanks so much for checking us out tonight. We will see you guys on Wednesday. Make sure you tune in. We'll catch you guys down the road.